The veterinary report at least suggests abuse, Mr. Raylo.
It suggests that the trainers strike him, but they have to sometimes for discipline.
One show.
In 4 years, one show took home 14 Emmys. For one program, another drew in 52 million people. A third made eyewear businesses wealthy and revolutionized fashion. They weren't little performances. They were huge hits that influenced whole decades. They have, however, mysteriously vanished from TV history. Most individuals today aren't even able to name them. Their tales expose the sinister reality of television's true operation: picket fences. While nothing should ever happen in a peaceful Wisconsin village, everything does. That is the setting of the 1992-1996 television drama Picket Fences. Well, on the surface, it appeared to be a straightforward small-town show, but the stories were anything but. The town of Rome would be rocked by a strange event every week. Human infants were born to cows. People started to burn. Courtrooms become chaotic theaters. Additionally, it appeared that local judges created their own laws. Sheriff Jimmy Brock and his wife, Dr. Jill Brock, were at the heart of it all, raising a family and preventing the town from collapsing. Things were made extra odd by the supporting cast. The lawyer was noisy, erratic, and would not accept confessions. Poltergeist star Zelda Rubinstein was the police dispatcher, and medical examiners were urged to carry firearms. Each character contributed a unique element that made the town stand out. The show was taken seriously despite all of its odd moments. The popularity of Picket Fences extended beyond critics. Award season was dominated by it. It received 14 Primetime Emmy Awards in just 4 years. It won twice for Best Drama Series. Kathy Baker's performance earned her 3 Emmys. Many others won acting awards as well. Despite having fewer nominations, the show surprised everyone by defeating Northern Exposure at the 45th Emmy Awards. Between September 18, 1992 and June 26, 1996, a total of 88 episodes were broadcast. The show garnered 60 nominations and 30 awards, including Humanitas Prize, Golden Globe, and Emmys. Its 1993 Nielsen ranking was a dismal 80th. In spite of all of this, it only reached 61st at its peak. However, Picket Fence's themes were what made it stand out. It addressed topics that other programs were too scared to address: racism, polygamy, homosexuality, abortion, and date rape. It covered every subject much before the majority of network programs would. Why did it disappear from the public consciousness then? First of all, it was broadcast by CBS on Friday nights, a time period that is notorious for ruining even the best series. Ratings were never commensurate with the caliber of the material, and young viewers and working people frequently missed it. It was followed by the tone. It wasn't a definite comedy or drama. It was neither a soap opera nor a procedural. It was somewhere in the middle, and most people might have found that too odd. Picket Fences failed to establish itself, while Twin Peaks developed a cult following. Time itself delivered the decisive blow. It was difficult to locate DVDs. It was absent from streaming services. Additionally, it was never revived, in contrast to other David E. Kelley productions like Big Little Lies or Ally McBeal. Almost never is it brought up while discussing the greatest or most significant TV series. Coach in 1997. No one anticipated that Coach would become less popular. It was among the decade's biggest TV hits. People viewed it as a part of their daily routine, laughed with the characters, and watched it every week. It had it all for nearly 10 years. Millions of admirers, a good tale, and a fantastic cast. The first day of the show was February 28, 1989. It came to an end on May 14, 1997. It had 200 episodes over 9 seasons. Even in today's terms, that's a remarkable run. Craig T. Nelson's character, Hayden Fox, was the focus of the narrative. He was Minnesota State University's boisterous and aggressive football coach. But football wasn't the only topic of the show. It also concentrated on his private life, including his bond with his daughter, his romantic difficulties, and his hectic daily routine. People could relate to it because it was heartfelt and humorous at the same time. The show took a risk in the latter 2 seasons. The characters entered the professional ranks after quitting collegiate football. They began coaching a fake NFL team called the Orlando Breakers. For sitcoms, such a transition was uncommon. Coach took a chance and changed course while maintaining the same core values, unlike other shows that follow a set format. The numbers were enormous. The show frequently ranked in the top 20 TV shows in terms of viewership. Its finale drew almost 27 million viewers in a single season. It received 27 nominations overall and won 2 Primetime Emmys, including one for Craig T. Nelson. Recognition like that doesn't just happen. What went wrong then? Why isn't Coach discussed the same way that Friends or Seinfeld are? It was still simple to locate for some time. After running on Nick and Night in the early 2000s, it gradually vanished. Unlike other shows, it didn't receive the same amount of rerun affection. The unsuccessful reset was one of the main causes. NBC attempted to revive it in 2015. Craig T. Nelson consented to come back. The original creator did the same. Only one of the 13 programs that NBC had paid for was actually filmed. It was shut down by the network, which said it was too outdated. It turned out to be one of the most costly errors in network history. Syndication also didn't help. Coach didn't become a streaming classic as other 90s hits did. It was difficult to locate, and it subtly vanished when more recent shows appeared. The great wave of nostalgia did not include it. All the emphasis was focused on shows like Friends, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Cheers. Its sports subject might not have resonated with the next generation of viewers despite Coach having a similar run and winning significant honors. The idea that such a popular show might suddenly disappear is odd. Coach was everywhere at one time. It is currently the 331st most watched television program ever. That's a significant decline from its previous position. However, the show continues to hold significance for those who watched it. Exposure to the North. A peculiar little show aired on television in the summer of 1990. It transported spectators to Sicily, a made-up town in Alaska. Despite having only 215 residents, the town was home to some of the most unusual TV personalities ever. The plot revolved around a neurotic New York psychiatrist named Dr. Joel Fleshman. As retaliation for attending a medical school, he was stranded in this isolated community instead of working in the state-of-the-art hospital in Anchorage. What transpired was completely different from his expectations. Sicily was not like that. Marilyn, his receptionist, hardly ever spoke. She simply gazed at him serenely. Morris, a retired astronaut who owned half the town and enjoyed controlling everyone, was the wealthiest man in town. Then there was Chris, a radio DJ who frequently cited esoteric thinkers like Carl Jung and had a poetic voice. Maggie, the bush pilot, had a history of boyfriends who died. Each local had a unique tale to tell, and they all made sense when together. The show combined deep emotional content with strange humor. It was simultaneously a comedy, a drama, and something more. People adored it. The average rating point for the show by its third season was 16.3. And 26 million people watched one episode. At the time, that equated to about 1 in 9 Americans. It has garnered 27 major accolades over the years, including an Emmy for Outstanding Drama Series and 2 Golden Globes for Best Drama. For 3 years in a row, it was among the top 20 television programs. The script was so well regarded that it was eventually listed as one of the 101 greatest programs ever created by the Writers Guild. It addressed issues such as gender identity, race, Native American culture, and the experience of being lost in a non-traditional environment. However, it began to descend as quickly as it had risen. 5 years after it started, Northern exposure was already diminishing in 1995. It all began when CBS, the network, shifted it from its well-liked Monday night time slot to a different night. The reason was a mystery to everyone. Within 6 months, that action alone caused its ratings to drop by half. The main actor, Rob Morrow, then departed to pursue a career in movies. CBS started shifting the program around on the schedule. During important rating periods, it was yanked from the air, then returned, and then removed once more. People couldn't remember when it was turned on. The ratings fell from 21 to 16 shares. That meant that even after it ended, around 5 million viewers vanished. It was difficult for people to rewatch. A lot of uncommon music from the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s was utilized in the show. The cost of obtaining the music rights prevented the show from being released on DVDs or online for a while. Many of the original tracks were altered or deleted even when streaming was eventually launched in 2024. Fans who recalled how well the music had suited were disappointed by that. Ideal Strangers. March 1986 saw the premiere of Perfect Strangers, and continued until August 1993. Described two cousins who couldn't be more dissimilar from one another. Larry was an earnest Midwesterner. Balk was a happy shepherd from Maples, a fictional island. He brought wide-eyed innocence to every moment and spoke terrible English. I know. Their daily lives together were the main subject of the show. Every little thing from creating a bank account to finding potato chips became into something significant. This sitcom depended on physical comedy, heart, and a sense of old-fashioned pleasure, whereas the majority of sitcoms from the late 1980s centered on sarcasm and quick one-liners. It was an unexpected hit when it first came out. In Nielsen ratings, its debut season came in at number 13. As a result, it was among the most popular shows at the time. It was given a prominent place in ABC's GF Friday night comedy program. Millions of people's childhoods would be influenced by that lineup. Even after the show's 1993 finale, 15 million homes watched it. That was sufficient to place it at number 11 in the ratings for that particular week. For a last bow, not bad. Among the show's most memorable elements was referred to as the Dance of Joy. When anything went well, the cousins would do this boisterous, goofy, joyful dance. Shouts, claps, leaps, and kicks. It was a mixture of crazy and happiness. It became commonplace by the conclusion of season 1, and it also gained popularity in real life. At school parties and even sporting events, people would perform the Dance of Joy. The humor wasn't limited to television. The real world was thrown into it. Throughout 150 episodes were produced throughout the course of 8 seasons. It maintained a ranking in the top 30 for the most of those years. It even made it into the top 20 in the last season. For a sitcom that late in its run, that is unusual. There was an obvious chemistry between the actors, Bronson Pinchot and Mark Lynn-Baker. The live crowd was so impressed by the last taping that they broke down in tears at the curtain call. The influence of the show, however, went beyond that. It aided in the debut of another popular sitcom, Family is Important. With some of the same authors and even some of the same narrative points, that show began as a spin-off. Steve Urkel was also introduced to the world. Unknowingly, Perfect Strangers had created a link to one of the most popular comedies of the 1990s. At its best, it embodied ABC's entire TGIF comedy brand. Without it, it wouldn't have been a Friday night ritual. Despite all of that accomplishment, Perfect Strangers quickly lost its appeal. There weren't many reruns. In contrast to Full House or Family Matters, the DVDs were released far too late. Fofoga. People went on. Few people remember the show from which the dance originated, but some people still remember it. After it was over, the actors were no longer in the spotlight. And in a world of faster, sharper shows, the tale of an innocent outsider trying to make his way in America didn't hold up as well. Court of the Night. Nobody anticipated that night Court would go on to become one of NBC's biggest blockbusters when it debuted on January 4th, 1984. It took place in a disorganized courtroom in Manhattan that was only open at night. From the setting to the jokes, everything about it felt strange and surprising, but it worked. The play somehow managed to combine genuine heart with utter pandemonium, and the cast was nimble. Night Court eventually rose to prominence as one of the most peculiar TV success stories ever. Nowadays, the majority hardly recall it. Judge Harold T. Stone was at the heart of the chaos. You had never seen a judge like him. He was silly young and enamored with Meltorm recordings and magic tricks. His courtroom employees were equally peculiar. Among them were the quirky public defender, a tough female bailiff, and Assistant District Attorney Dan Fielding, a figure who simultaneously made people laugh and blush. Dan chased women all the time, was caustic, and was shameless. He was among the most ludicrous characters ever permitted on network television at the time. Despite having an odd concept and airing late, the show did more than just survive. It took off. Over the course of 9 seasons and 193 episodes, Night Court rose to prominence on television. It rose to number 7 in the national ratings by the 4th season. It received a 23.2 Nielsen score. This indicated that almost 1 out of every 4 televisions was watching during that time. That's a larger viewership share than the majority of popular shows nowadays. After then, there were the prizes. From 1985 until 1988, John Larroquette, who portrayed Dan Fielding, collected 4 consecutive Emmys for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. He actually advised voters to quit choosing him in 1989. In that area, no one else has ever won that many consecutive titles. In total, the program received 31 Emmy nominations and took home 7 of them. Its influence extended well beyond America. Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Italy, Germany, and Spain all showed Night Court. Then everything fell apart practically overnight. The program began to fall out of the top 40 during the 1991-1992 season. Less than half as many people watched as when it was at its highest. The cast began to shift. Authors became exhausted. The final episode of the show was discreetly broadcast on May 31st, 1992. There was no TV event or grand farewell. There was no sincere homage. It simply stopped. Reruns were short-lived. Night Court receded into the background as other sitcoms from the 1980s, such as Cheers and The Golden Girls, continued to be popular in syndication. It occasionally appeared on specialized cable channels or... It never became a regular feature of the nostalgia circuit, but it did appear during sporadic marathons. Nest Empty, October 1988, NBC debuted a new sitcom with a low key. Although it began as a spin-off from the already well-liked The Golden Girls, it soon gained its own identity and became known as Empty Nest. The narrative focused on Miami-based Dr. Harry Weston, who was widowed. His 2 grown children moved back in just when he thought he would have the place to himself. Barbara was a stern, no-nonsense police officer, but Carol was emotional and nervous. The house was never quiet because of their continual personality conflicts, include their quirky neighbor Charlie, the sardonic nurse Laverne, and the family dog Dreyfus. That vacant house didn't feel so empty all of a sudden. There was more to the show than a light humor. Empty Nest addressed deeper topics even though it shared a Miami setting with the Golden Girls and occasionally had crossover episodes. In one episode, euthanasia was discussed. Alzheimer's disease was examined by another. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, these weren't the usual subjects for a primetime sitcom, but the writers managed to incorporate them with emotional performances, humor, and affection, particularly from Richard Mulligan, who portrayed Harry Weston with a mixture of gentleness and subdued annoyance. He received an Emmy for his work on the show, and many viewers thought he was the show's main character. Many people are unaware of how well-liked Empty Nest was in its early years. It rose to the 9th most watched program in America during its inaugural season in 1988 and 1989. This indicates that almost 1 in 5 TV-owning households were watching. It maintained its position in its 2nd season, even surpassing the Golden Girls in repeat ratings, a feat that was nearly unprecedented. It rose even farther by the 3rd season, peaking at number 7. Millions of people watched it each week, placing it alongside programs like Magnum P.I., Murphy Brown, and America's Funniest Home Videos. There was more success to come. The show featured a procession of well-known guest stars across its 7 seasons and 170 episodes. Bobcat Goldthwait, Morgan Fairchild, and Angie Dickinson were among the well-known figures who made an appearance. In 1991, it even received its own spin-off, Nurses, a medical comedy that attempted to develop the same universe. That universe was the foundation of NBC's Saturday night schedule for a while. Then, however, an odd event occurred. People simply stopped discussing Empty Nest as the years passed. The last program, which broadcast on June 17, 1995, came and went with little fanfare. It was a quiet success, according to critics. It had never made as much news as Roseanne or Seinfeld. Unlike Cheers, there were no accolades bestowed upon it. Additionally, it failed to attract new admirers as the audience grew older. It was even joked by some of the producers that their audience had just grown out of the limelight. Empty Nest died out in contrast to the Golden Girls, which found fresh life on social media and streaming sites. It became that show with the dog for a lot of people. It didn't get relaunched or inspire memes. Reruns didn't include it. It narrowly cracks the list, placing in the 700s on current rankings. All of its initial achievements. The great stars, the millions of viewers, and the high numbers all seemed to fade into the background. Miami Vice began airing on NBC in September 1984 and starred Sonny Crockett and Ricardo Tubbs, two undercover policemen, as they battled criminals in the chaotic and hot climate of Miami. However, it was different from the typical automobile chases and shootouts. It was the sensation, the sound, the appearance. The event was a visual extravaganza from the beginning. Real city streets, rapid boats, vibrant pastels, no brown tones, and music blaring from MTV's biggest hits. Everything was expertly made to give you the impression that you were witnessing something daring and novel. The cost of producing each episode was approximately $1.03 million, which was unprecedented for television at the time. Real Ferraris, Armani and Versace fancy outfits, and a soundtrack that sounded more like a pop record than a crime drama were all used by the creators. Michael Mann and his crew put their all into it behind the scenes. The stories were grim, rife with corruption, treachery, and drug use. Flash wasn't the only thing. There was also substance. It presented a sexier, more ominous, and more vibrant Miami. It wasn't just characters solving crimes that viewers were watching. They were entering a slippery, perilous environment that seemed liable to collapse at any time. The ratings didn't blow up at first, but everything changed when reruns started airing in the summer of 1985. Miami Vice was suddenly one of the most talked about television programs. In terms of viewership, it entered the top 10. The carefree look of Don Johnson, which includes a t-shirt underneath a jacket, no socks, sunglasses, and a little scruff, became the style that all men desired. Sales of Ray-Ban sunglasses skyrocketed. Store shelves were flooded with pastel clothing. To experience what they saw on screen, travel firms saw a surge in individuals booking trips to Miami. Even the naysayers took note. The program received 4 Emmys in 1985 after being nominated for 15. However, not everyone thought it was great. Some felt it was overly superficial and too centered on appearances, too consumed by pleasure. No one could dispute that it was altering the rules, though. However, like with all trends, the radiance began to wane. Miami Vice was in its 5th season by 1989, and it was obvious that the magic was fading. The ratings fell sharply. In the Nielsen rankings, it dropped to number 64. The once avant-garde style now seems stuck in the past. Sockless shoes, neon, and synths all shouted 1980s. As the world continued to move on, Michael Mann was gone. Jan Hammer had also left. Dick Wolf, who would go on to establish Law and Order, took over as showrunner. He altered the focus, the tempo, and the tone. A few of the recent instances seemed odd and unrelated. In one, James Brown even made an appearance with aliens. The crowd was unsure about how to interpret it. Dallas and other rival programs began attracting viewers. The tales became increasingly bizarre. The emotional attraction subsided. Miami Vice had lost its sense of novelty and danger. The decade it helped define was now reflected in it. And with the conclusion of that decade, it vanished in silence. It's difficult to believe now, but almost everyone in America used to pause to watch Rhoda. This Mary Tyler Moore spinoff wasn't just well-liked in the middle of the 1970s. It was everywhere. Rhoda Morgenstern was Valerie Harper's homecoming. Mary's beloved best buddy had been a sardonic, quick-witted New Yorker. Rhoda was back in New York this time, attempting to make a fresh start. After moving in with her sister Brenda, played by Julie Kavner, she met Joe Girard, played by David Groh, a quiet, tough man, almost right away. They clicked right away. Rhoda's brassy wit and emotional honesty were emphasized throughout the broadcast. She didn't pretend to be anything other than Jewish, loud, and brazen. Back then, it was uncommon to see a figure like that on television. She was horribly truthful and amusing at the same time. The wedding followed. Just a few weeks into the first season, on October 28, 1974, CBS broadcast a special one-hour episode where Rhoda and Joe got married. It was viewed by almost 52 million people. I still find that figure unbelievable. Up to the release of Roots in 1977, it was the most watched TV show of the decade. For comparison, more than half of the nation's TV watching population tuned in. In terms of ratings, the show even outperformed Monday Night Football. During the show, Howard Cosell made a joke about not receiving an invitation to Rhoda's wedding. Being aware of the precise reasons why so many were moving to CBS, there was more to it than TV. People held watch parties all around the nation.